Hello there. Good afternoon, good morning, and even good evening, wherever you are around the world today. My name is Kevin May. I'm the editor and co-founder of Tnooz.com. Welcome to another one of our webinars under the title "Why Upselling is the Key to Long-Term Growth and Loyalty." We're delighted to welcome Nor1, who have partnered with us on this particular webinar this afternoon. I'm here in the UK. My glamorous co-founder and the producer behind the scenes, Jean Quinn, is in Connecticut, and I'm also delighted to welcome Jason Bryant from Nor1 and also Henry Hartfeld. They are both in San Francisco on the West Coast in the morning, and it's very early in the morning for them. They're probably still sitting there churning over their breakfast. But why is upselling key to long-term revenue growth and loyalty? So it's an interesting topic. Upselling is something that gets talked about in terms of ancillary revenue, whether that's for hotels or airlines. It is the hot topic at the moment, or one of many hot topics at the moment, as you would imagine. But there is some really fundamental questions now about upselling, and that's, when is the best time to present ancillary offers to the guests? Or should suppliers work harder to get their buying decisions right and get those personalized offers in at the right place at the right time in front of the right person? So obviously big data, there's that phrase again, but we think at Tnooz, it isn't just a catchphrase or a slogan. It's something that's becoming massively important to the industry, and it's actually transforming some of this decision and the analytics that go behind it to really help companies get into the purchase and indeed the life cycle of a consumer when they're booking a trip. So what you're going to hear over the next 55 minutes or so is a presentation from Jason and Henry, and then of course we will get to a Q&A at the end. So some very quick housekeeping from me before I hand over. We are, as always, recording this entire webinar for your delight, and indeed if you want to share that with your colleagues and customers and contacts afterwards, you're more than welcome to do so. The way you can do that is looking out for a post on tnooz.com within the next 24 hours or next 12 hours if we're feeling slightly more ambitious today on a Tuesday. So on that post will be the full webinar and a recording of which, and of course the slides as well that you're about to see now. So reminder then, so we will be having a Q&A at the end. Now you can submit your questions to me, and I will pose those to our panelists at the very end. You can do so by just simply clicking on the questions button, which is on the right-hand side of your webinar dashboard as you look at it right now. So I'll be reminding you of this as we go through, but we do like to have a discussion at the end, and we like to get as many contributions from you, our lovely audience today, as we can. Otherwise, you'll just sit here listening to Jean and I ask Henry and Jason some questions. So enough from me. As I said, I'm very pleased to introduce you now to Jason Bryant, who is the founder and co-chief executive officer of Nor1. As I said earlier, he is in San Francisco, very early in the morning for him, but I'm delighted to hand over to him now. Jason, good morning, and we're looking forward to hearing you first, and then a little bit from Henry as well.
Thanks, Kevin. And thanks to Tnooz for providing us this opportunity to share our experiences and our perspective on upselling. And also thank you to all the attendees. I hope you find the next hour a good investment of your time. What I'll start off with here, if we go to the next slide, just a very quick bio on Nor1. We are devoted to one topic, which is upselling, and we have 3 products that sort of focus on the different areas of the reservation life cycle: pre-stay, at check-in, intra-stay, and post-stay. E-Standby Upgrade is what we started the company with 8 years ago. It's essentially a way to help hoteliers price and merchandise premium inventory more effectively and gain greater utilization of that inventory. The front desk upsell module is to sort of use the decisions intelligence that we have right there at the front desk and empower the front desk agent to provide very relevant, precise offers to guests at the front desk. And then finally, a product that we're in the process of releasing right now is eReach, which is essentially a product focusing on intra-stay and post-stay, and primarily utilizes a mobile technology, communicating with the guests via mobile means. All of the products have sort of wrapped around them a couple things. One is sort of a very heavy attention to decision science, as Kevin mentioned, big data. The way we refer to it usually more as predictive analytics is how do you make really solid decisions and do that in real time. I'll talk more about that a little bit later in the presentation. But then also the intersection with mobile is where we see this huge opportunity to create true personalized commerce. Again, I'll also talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. If we move to the next slide. And this just highlights, again, basically the different areas of the reservation lifecycle that we participate in, from the booking to the booking confirmation, pre-arrival communications and confirmation emails, pre-arrival emails, right there at check-in, and then all the way through the guest's stay on property. Next slide. Next slide, please. I'll go through this quickly again. There's a host of organizations. We deal with a number of the global hospitality chains. Currently, we're focused exclusively on hospitality and provide our services as a white label solution to our clients. I only highlight this just because our experience is based on a very wide variety of types of properties, types of organizations, different types of locations and geographies. And I'll share with you some statistics later on in the presentation. But again, it's based on, thus far, we've seen about 100 million upsell offers, or we've made about 100 million upsell offers. So have, again, just a very broad level of experience on making these types of offers, and when is it the most appropriate time to make these offers. With that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin.
Okay, right, thanks Jason. Right, so as always we do like to have a little temperature check of everyone that's listening in. So Jean, if you'd like to throw up our first poll for the audience please today. And it's a simple one, kind of. On a scale of 1 to 5, how well thought out is your organization's plan to make ancillary product offers? So scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very well thought out and 1 being haven't even considered it. So let's see what you're all thinking at the moment. Okay, starting to see those votes come in. We can all just stand by a moment. Okay, so just a few more seconds there and we'll throw up those results. Let's go for it, Jim. So almost exactly half of you are straight down the middle of the road. 49% of you say 3, and at those extremes of the ends there. So just 9% say very well thought out, and 7% say haven't even considered it. So lots to think about and lots of opportunity for people like Nor1 as well. So let's close that one down for a moment, and then we'll get to the next one. We've got a second poll which will lead us straight into the next set of slides. So poll number 2, please. And that is, who has responsibility for upselling in your organization? Is it the revenue management department, marketing, e-commerce, loyalty, or is it one of the others? I sense I know which one this is going to be, but it will be interesting to see how this pans out. So, lots of you are voting, just a few more seconds there. Right, I think, Jean, we should have those results up now, please. So there we go. Around a third have said revenue management, around a third have also said other, just a quarter say marketing, and 1% say it's to do with the person that's responsible for loyalty. So with those in mind, just as I'm about to hand back to Jason, do those results surprise you on the second poll? And indeed, what do you think that other is, you know, who are those others, Jason, first of all, before we go back into your slides?
I'm sorry, who do I think?
Yes, yeah, I just wondered, who do you think, you know, we've got 32% saying here that other has responsibility. Who might those others be, just out of interest?
I would guess that there's probably some combination, that it's other in the sense that maybe we should have put that as one of the you know, one of the responses, but it's a combination of the above.
Yeah, sure. Okay, right. Thank you very much, everybody, for voting there. And now I'm going to hand you officially back over to Jason now, and we're looking forward to hearing the large body of the presentation. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin. If we move to the next slide, what I wanted to do is just to make sure that we're all on the same page and aligned on to the definition here. There's a lot of different terms sort of thrown around, cross-selling and upselling and upgrading. For the purpose of this presentation, what I think it's best to do is just use a very broad definition, which is just upselling is what occurs or what refers to revenue potential that goes above and beyond a traditional booking. So the originally booked room, all of those offers or opportunities, whether they're hotel-based or whether they're cross-selling into into rental cars or airlines, or whether they're third-party merchants, other outside restaurants or spas or events, all of that for this purpose, this presentation is upselling. And again, upselling focuses on driving additional conversions from your current customers, which I think is hugely important from the standpoint of that we sort of all recognize, or I think we should all recognize that the cost of guest acquisition continues to rise. And so it's important that we continue to maximize or leverage each and every customer transaction or each and every reservation. We move to the next slide. So why is upselling critical? Really the and I'll go through these quickly, but the primary point I want to make is that it's very easy to focus, I think, myopically on revenue. When we started the company 8 years ago, that was the sort of our mantra, and we originally sold directly into the revenue management organizations, and it's sort of this very, especially with what we do, it's sort of this very obvious incremental revenue opportunity. However, I think it's short-sighted not to realize that going forward into the future, there's a number of other areas that are impacted greatly and will give organizations the opportunity to have a huge competitive differentiation if paid, those items are paid attention to. So one, certainly, first and foremost, as I mentioned, yeah, it creates greater utilization of fixed assets, and again, creates additional incremental revenue for the room inventory. Two is it builds customer loyalty, delight the guest, enhance guest experience. We've seen and done a number of surveys, individually but also with our clients, that, and no surprise, but the guests have a better satisfaction level when they do receive upgrades, or whether they pay for them or not. And then three, maximize the value of each reservation. As I mentioned, I think that's a huge opportunity. And then finally, one that I think is yet to be fully recognized, but again, there's this huge opportunity with all the data that's coming across through these transactions, and this is something that we've seen. Why we've invested so heavily, let's say, in decision technology and predictive analytics, is that there's huge opportunity to take all of that information and use it across the enterprise, to fortify revenue management, to fortify loyalty, to fortify sales and marketing. And that's where sort of Nor1 is devoted right now, is finding ways to use this information that we're getting, as well as a number of the derivative statistics that we're creating. So for instance, willingness to pay. There's indexes that we create and we use that help us to know what upsell offers to provide the guest, but we just believe that there's a way to use this information much more broadly in the organization. If we go to the next slide. Again, maybe obvious, but I think worth noting is, again, what are the benefits to the guest or to consumers? Yeah, no surprise, consumers love upgrades, and they love room upgrades, and they will pay for them. As I noted, we've done paid a lot of attention to this with surveys, and whether they are or aren't paying for them, their experience is positively impacted by getting an upgrade. It will absolutely help differentiate your business in the eyes of consumers. And then finally, it makes your business's mobile application more relevant during the actual travel phase. And this is where we've been applying sort of a huge amount of effort in understanding that how do you get a guest to actually be interested in using an app. There's this discovery component where they get information about your properties or about your organization, but we believe that the motivation for them to use the app will be increased if they're actually getting these very precise, relevant communications with offers throughout the reservation life cycle. Next slide, please. I'd like to hand it over to Henry.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone. This is Henry Hartevelt. I'm the travel industry analyst and strategist at Hudson Crossing. For those of you not familiar with Hudson Crossing, we are a travel-focused strategic advisory firm. We're 7 years old, headquartered in New York City. We work with clients globally. I'm based in San Francisco. And we've recently started a new subscription research program that focuses on the intersection of marketing, travel distribution, and travel-related technology. Our research is objective and independent. It includes a mix of large-scale consumer surveys. For example, I'll be sharing data with you from a survey we fielded earlier this year of 5,067 US travelers. We also do topic-specific industry executive studies. It's possible some of you may have even received an invitation to participate in these studies and have cooperated with us, for which we extend our appreciation. If we can advance to the next slide, please. As we talk about upselling and merchandising, I think it's important for those of us in the travel industry to really take a step back and view what we sell. We tend to think of the sector in which we sell, whether it's airline or hotel or whatever it may be. What I think will help us be more effective is viewing the journey through the framework and the lens of a story arc, similar to how in Hollywood they write movies or TV series, where there's an overarching story arc, what's going to happen. So think about the traveler's journey or their stay with you. You have a variety of different channels and touch points based on your business, based on the country that the traveler's originating from, the country of destination. There are all the different parts in the travel life cycle that we're familiar with: dream, research, book, etc. And then you have the various products and offers and so on that you can reach travelers beyond just that initial booking point. And it's important to realize, as Jason has already spoken about, you have multiple opportunities to reach out and connect with that traveler, to sell them things that are relevant, that they value, and that they will pay for beyond the initial room or whatever the initial product is that you're offering. If we can advance to the next slide, please. The traveler has two wallets. What our research has shown is that 87% of travelers set a budget for the booking, for the hotel, for the airfare, etc. There is a second wallet. This is the money that they spend after they've made the initial booking. That includes everything from shopping and dining and entertainment to incidental purchases, ancillary purchases. You can tap into both of these wallets, but your challenge is, as a business person, regardless of the area in which you work, to understand which of the wallets you're tapping into. So if we can advance to the next slide, please. 3 I's of travel merchandising are inspiration. You've got to get the traveler excited, whether it's about the destination, the property, or the product. The second I is immediacy: right time, right place, right offer. And again, the third I, individualism. It's all about me. You could, as a business, extend the same basic offer to everyone on this webinar, but you would probably find that there are ways that you could tweak the offer to make it more relevant to the different audience. It could be a family, it could be someone who is older or younger, it could be different ethnic or social groups, etc. So understanding the 3 I's can help you be a more effective merchant: inspiration, immediacy, and individualism. Not only is it about the offers, but as you'll see, it's also about the channels and platforms you use to communicate these. Travel is also an excuse for self-indulgence. What we have found in our research is very interesting. 60% of travelers say that they do nicer things for themselves when they are on a trip. It's our opportunity to let loose. So if we can advance to the next slide, please. The details matter. You can't just sell me something. You have to make it very clear what is distinguished about your product. Your content has to be clear, and importantly, you need to make it clear because 3 in 4 travelers, 74%, consider the quality of a hotel's amenities and service to be important in their decision-making criteria. You're asking us as consumers to pay more for something extra. You've got to make me understand why I should consider your offer. So don't stint on the copy, don't stint on the visual content. If we can advance, please, to the next slide. Now, what's also exciting is that a significant number of travelers can be tempted with upsell or cross-sell offers. Our research shows that almost half the travelers we've surveyed, 48%, say they will pay a reasonable premium to receive better service. Almost as many, 47%, say they will pay more to save time or reduce hassle. That could be something such as an early check-in or late checkout. And 45% say that they will pay more for extra comfort. So that could be the upgraded room, a larger room, something with better amenities, etc. If we can advance to the next slide, please. Jason mentioned mobile. There is no question mobile is going to be one of the factors that will be driving how we do commerce, how we support, how we serve our customers. Our first report at Hudson Crossing was about creating a mobile-centric future. This is our forecast of adoption by travelers of smartphones in dark blue at the top and tablet devices, light blue at the bottom line. What's important to know is travelers are already more likely to have these devices than the typical US consumer. This is also true in other countries. And travelers tend to adopt these technologies 12 to 18 months ahead of mainstream consumers. 30% of travelers who have a smartphone right now plan to replace it in the next year. So they're constantly upgrading. You need to make sure you're able to support your upsell offers through mobile because, frankly, this gets back to the notion of immediacy and right time, right place. If we can advance, please. Mobile enables additional selling opportunities. We asked questions of airline passengers because airline ancillaries are so in the news right now. It's a $27 billion business for the airline industry. When they would want to buy various items after making the initial reservation or travel process. For airlines, 25 to 50% of the ancillary product sales opportunity exists after the initial reservation has been made. So what's really interesting, again, this speaks to the notion of not just email marketing, but mobile. Your need, even in the hotel business, is to reach that traveler at the right time, whether they're en route to your hotel, on property, in town, whatever it may be. If we can advance to the next slide, please. So what does this bring us? It's not just about upselling. What I'd like you all to think about is what we at Hudson Crossing call customer managed experiences, CMX. We define this as using the relevant data to create and target offers, and that customer managed experiences are the products that customers create and buy through their channel or platform of choice, and importantly, using when and where they want to. So they may say, you know, for the first night we're okay in a regular room, but the last 2 nights of the stay we'd like something better. So we can advance to the next slide. So what's really important to understand, it is ancillary products, whether it is a room upsell, a spa cross-sell, or other things that are the catalysts for the customer managed experiences that you have to offer. So as I hand this back over to Jason and we talk about upsells, I'd like you to think about this because we can certainly discuss this more when we have time for the Q&A portion. With that, Jason, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Henry. And very interesting statistics at a high level, and I think a nice transition into what I'm going to highlight now, which is some specific statistics from our experience and from the portfolio of clients that we serve. And I really wanted to use this slide to highlight something that Henry had spoke to, which is about different wallets. It's incredibly important to understand that when an offer is made has a huge bearing on how well it's going to convert. When we first started, positioning ourselves, or started working on decisions intelligence, we were focusing very much on what's the right price and what's the right offer to provide to the guest. But then what we quickly found was an equal lever in conversion and providing the right, the right offer to a guest is when is this offer made, and actually to the point where now, after sort of the last couple of years of experience, we're realizing that the guest may actually have more than 2 wallets. And that understanding those timings and understanding when to make those offers will be the difference between being successful or not. One of the very quick examples that I usually give that's usually intuitive for most people is take a restaurant offer. We did a huge amount of experimentation early on with restaurant offers. And what we found was that when the restaurant offer was made, say a week to 2 weeks outside of the booking, no matter what the incentive was, they just didn't convert. And again, I think intuitively we all realize is that people are not, it's not that point in time when they're ready to make a decision about a restaurant. Restaurant offers convert much more highly closer to consumption all the way up to actually day of. A few statistics here, just again from our experience. One is on the e-standby offers that we make, and again, so these are post-confirmation upgrade offers. we see conversion rates of between 15 and 20%. And again, just speaks to that point that guests are really interested in upgrades at that point. So as the hotelier, our advice is that in the first step of the flow, you concentrate very much on specifically getting them to book their room, not making a number of other offers to them, which is just going to dilute your conversion. Once they've booked that room, then focusing from that point on the inventory upsells. And for what it's worth, from statistics we have, that conversion rates, or those conversion rates, are about 10 times above the industry standard. We see that we increase the the offer set, or the amount of revenue that you've created, by 32% from the original booking. The ADR increases that we are seeing is anywhere from between 1 and 5% when it's normalized across all the bookings that we have access to, that we're exposing. And we make about 2 million upsell offers a month. So again, just have a vast amount of experience, and which is what it takes in order to, let's say, take a predictive analytics approach. You need a lot of observations to be able to separate the noise from the signal. Another just a highlight here is on loyalty. We've done a huge amount of experimentation with loyalty guests, specifically premium loyalty guests. And what we found is that these guests, the premium loyalty guests, are actually more likely to pay for an upgrade. But again, they're very price sensitive. So again, they very much need to see that there's this value proposition, that there is some value in what the offer is made to them. And so what you see here is, one of our clients, Hilton, is, we make an offer to the guest for a premium loyalty guest, and show them that here, your first level of upgrade, it is free, it's complimentary per your membership program, or for the loyalty program. But then we make a number of other offers to them. And again, so we have seen that those guests, there's a huge amount of opportunity to generate incremental revenue from from those reservations as well. Moving on to the next slide. Again, just some statistics from from our portfolio, just to give you some bearing on what the opportunity may be for you. We see that on average, a guest is willing to pay, those guests that that execute these offers are willing to pay on average $9 for a high floor. And I think a lot of hoteliers can be hesitant about making those type of offers. And so we just basically took the approach that let the data speak for the client. Let's make some offers, let's do some experimentation. And again, we have found that there's a significant interest in high floors for guests. $28 plus is the average price paid for early check-in. $36 plus is the average price paid for a late checkout. And then the average upgrade that we're seeing is about $58, and that's for a king suite, which is, again, like I said, the most popular upgrade that that we see in our solution. The next slide. Kevin, back to you with the next question.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Jason. So just a little breather for everybody for a moment, and we are going to hit you with our final poll for the day. So, Jean, if you'd like to throw that one up. We'll give you a little bit more time for this one because some of it's very texty here. So what level of personalization does your organization employ when making upsell offers to customers? So fire away, everybody. Okay. Jason, what's your prediction on this one?
I would say probably in the middle, at least from our experience and what we see. Most of the larger global organizations, they're doing some personalization, but they're pretty high-level levers that they're using, whether it's seasonality or availability. Okay, let's see those results then, Gene. Thank you very much. So 39% say low. Next is 30% on the medium, and then we've got none and high in the low teens there, and just 5% saying very high. So surprise, I guess not. You said somewhere in the middle there, didn't you, Jason? I did. Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to you for your remaining slides, sir. Thank you. So what I'd like to touch on now is just one, where we believe the industry is going, and specifically what technologies that we need to be leveraged in order to take upselling, let's say, to the next level, or to truly to take advantage of the opportunity. And when we speak of personalized commerce, at Nor1, what we believe is that's truly possible by the intersection of two technologies. One is predictive analytics, or big data, or decision technology, referred to in a lot of ways. The other is just mobile. And so not only the growth of mobile, but also the sophistication of the way mobile offers are made and how a guest actually interacts with their mobile devices. And so if we go to the next slide, I'll speak a little bit about, again, analytics. What I think it's important to understand is that analytics is this very broad sort of definition, and lots of us have different sort of the connotation of what we believe that is varies greatly. And just to put it into perspective, at least from sort of our approach, there's really sort of 3 levels of analytics maturity. One would be, let's say, the traditional business intelligence approach, using sophisticated collection tools, sophisticated reporting tools, but again, creating these very nice visuals and graphics and reporting items, but then it still requires a human being to go through and interpret those results and then take an action on those results. The second level would be predictive, what we refer to as predictive business intelligence. So you've taken a step beyond business intelligence. You started to do some segmentation. You start to understand, again, either whether it's seasonality or whether you understand Friday nights have a different component than the rest of the week, leisure versus business. But again, it's still a human being looking at it and creating these rules, creating these predictive conditions that you're applying to the to each of the transactions. And then the third level of maturity, which we believe is sort of the where you absolutely need to get to in order to fully recognize the opportunity, is real-time decisions intelligence. So a mechanism that is in a real-time fashion collecting all of this data, sorting it out, using very sophisticated algorithms to not only just predict, but actually to take action, to make the offer real-time. So for instance, I mentioned our front desk product, those are algorithms that are happening real-time. Right when the guest walks up, the algorithms for that are making a decision based on a whole host of a wide data set, including inventory. What is the right thing to put in front of the guest at this time? So again, that's also, as I mentioned earlier, why when to make the offer is hugely important. The only way to be able to do that is to have a real-time decision mechanism. Next slide. As I mentioned, the data sets, the amount of data that needs to be looked at that is very relevant is much larger than at least what we saw when we very first started. The types of profiles and the types of sort of the different perspectives that we have on the data is fairly large. So one, there's a consumer profile, which usually has a lot of historical information, preferences. Loyalty programs are collecting, or CRMs are collecting a lot of that information. For what it's worth, historically, as we move through our maturity, we found that in order to predict the right item for a guest at a given point in time, the historical transactions were actually not of great value. It's as easy as this, that if we knew what you did 5 times historically, our ability to predict what you're going to do the 6th time is still fairly low. We would be inaccurate far more than we would be accurate. Just because your intent of travel changes. Traveling on a Saturday night, staying for 3 nights at the Waldorf Astoria, a very different, so say, profile or persona than you staying at the Hampton Inn on a Wednesday night just for 1 single night. And so the way that we've been able to sort of take advantage of that is just collecting a huge amount of data that's not only just the profile, but also specifically what's happening on this, the buyer behavior, what's happening on this transaction, what's the last thing that you bought, at what price, what's the last thing that we showed you at what price, even if you didn't select it. That type of information is very important in understanding how to make the right offer, the precise offer to the guest. So again, collecting a lot of data. Next slide. So then moving into mobile, I just think it's interesting to take into consideration, why do we believe mobile is, such a big opportunity? I think, many times we just all accept that, it's growing very quickly, and, that's something we need to pay attention to. But if you look at some of the statistics behind there, and Henry has shared with us a number of other very compelling statistics, what this says to me is that absolutely there's this opportunity to make relevant offers via the mobile device, just based on the existing sort of behavior of guests using a mobile device. So I'll just go through quickly the number of the ones that I think are compelling. One is 62% of restaurant searches are from a smartphone and tablet device according to Google. So again, those are usually happening day of. As I mentioned earlier, the right time to make a restaurant offer is not going to be 2 weeks out or even necessarily at check-in. It's going to be on that particular day and what we believe the right restaurant offer is for that day. 66% of the searches on mobile devices are more likely to have a local intent than a desktop search. Again, it's obviously very location specific. We believe that hoteliers need to have a much broader sort of thought of the types of offers that can be made that are very sort of regionalized or very local, locally centric. 80% of mobile users prefer locally relevant advertising, and 75% are more likely to take an action after seeing a location-specific message. I think the hospitality industry, sits in this pretty amazing position as far as the consumer information that they have access to. Knowing, where a person is traveling to, how long they're going to be there, the rates that they've paid for that is a tremendous advantage over almost any other consumer buying process. And being able to leverage that information and then to pinpoint when during the reservation life cycle to make very specific offers is just this huge opportunity, not only to generate additional revenue, but as we mentioned earlier, to create greater guest loyalty, and then again, just to truly, have this continuous relevant dialogue with your guests. Moving next slide. The mobile upsell equals experience management, very much as Henry had noted. I think this is where there's this tremendous opportunity, and it struck me recently as I thought through a lot of the global chains that we work with, that from a digital standpoint, for many organizations, the last real-time interaction they have with the guest is actually in booking the room. From that point forward, yes, the guest goes to the property and checks in, but that's usually a human-oriented interaction. And so again, I believe there's this huge opportunity to have this huge impact across the enterprise by truly leveraging sort of the mobile device and the data that's a result of that. Move to the next slide. So again, there's a huge amount of information that can be shared with guests, whether this is via an app or whether it's direct, emails, targeted emails that are sent during the stay. Some are informational, discovery-oriented, so giving them the right information at the right time, which we believe that's the important focus. Is not just always making offers. It's what do we need to put in front of the guest right now to enhance their stay. Yes, it may be an offer, it may be a recommendation for some service, but very much it may also just be, again, maps or information on the property, reminders, flight delay communications. And there's a whole, I think there's a huge amount of information very relevant to the guest. That we're seeing a lot of different organizations, get involved in. But again, the more that I believe that the hotelier is able to capture those things, communicate those things to the guest, the greater opportunities for revenue, the greater opportunities to enhance the guest experience. Next slide. So, as a summary here, especially when we think of the large enterprises, the global organizations who, all I think are investing a huge amount in this, from our experience, what we believe in order to have let's say, an end-to-end upsell solution and truly have this competitive advantage, truly be able to maximize the opportunity not only with revenue but learning about the guest and being able to service the guest. There's 4 things that we believe that each organization should focus on. One is, investing in analytics and real-time decisioning. For us, what that meant was, investing in PhD-level statisticians and mathematicians, and as well as data engineers. The ability to have these PhDs create these very elegant algorithms, that's great, but you need to be able to execute those real times, in milliseconds. Excuse me for 1 second, I'm having a technical issue here. The second is, again, optimize everything for mobile. It's not as simple as sort of a whole host of materials and sort of every conference I attend, there's some sort of focus on mobile. So it's a very sort of a very relevant topic. But again, it's not as easy as just taking what we do on the web and putting on a mobile phone. It's taking an entirely different approach to the way that you communicate with a guest via that mobile device. And again, paying attention to that and realizing this, it's a whole different opportunity. It's a completely different transaction process than they do on a desktop. 3 is think more broadly about your product set. So again, not just, I think that we need to think that, yes, there's the room upgrades, that's great. There's these amenities that the hotel controls, the spas, the restaurants, thematic packages, similarly great. But the guest has this huge hunger and is clearly going to be investing in a number of other things that make sense to us that the hotelier should be in the middle of that, whether it's tours and activities, events, ground transportation. There's this, again, opportunity to sort of be let's say the endorser, the organization that helps the guest with their stay, no matter what the sort of the product set is. So I think that each organization just think more broadly about that, how to make those offers to guests. And finally is, again, just engage multiple functions internally in the discussion of upselling. This is just back to the, one of the poll question is, who is responsible for upselling? And sort of the more that we've continued to have internal discussions with the large organizations, we realize that it's very cross-functional to truly, utilize or to truly realize the benefit. It definitely engages revenue management and loyalty and sales and marketing, and e-commerce and all these different areas. And sometimes we feel that is sort of the, one of the obstacles that we face is trying to get all these different organizations aligned. To the extent that they are aligned, or your organizations can become aligned, you'll have a very successful program, we believe. And thank you.
Thank you so much, both Jason and Henry. So we've got about 15 minutes for a discussion between us all. Jean may join us as well. We've had quite a few questions have come in a late flurry here, so I will try and get to as many of them as I can. If I don't, what we do here is that we do take a note of all the questions and who asked it, and we'll pass that on to the guys here, and hopefully they or one of their team members will get back to you as soon as possible. So just a first one from me, and I suppose this is to both of you. So we've been talking about this at Tnooz for a long time. We've got to know the guys at Nor1 very well, and we understand what you're doing. Do you sense that the industry as a whole, the hospitality people that you're talking to and prospective clients and things like that, Jason, do you think generally that they get that there is this opportunity, or do you sense that there is still something holding them back?
I think there's an emerging knowledge, right? Certainly, over the last few years, we've seen the dialogue continue, a greater level of understanding of analytics. So I see that. But again, to be able, I think that one of the struggles, again, just back to big data, it's not trivial at all about how to utilize that. How do you actually use this data to make good, solid decisions? We have a lot of scars, let's say, on us. And we're located here in Silicon Valley. Have access to like some of, let's say, the best and the brightest. And again, it's just not trivial at all to build systems to really have decisions that are really increasing conversion. So it's a very nascent industry. It's a very nascent technology, and how to leverage it. And so I think all of us are continuing to struggle with that. But I definitely see an emerging awareness and recognition of the opportunity.
And Henry, as a long-term or long-time observer of the industry in various guises, do you agree with Jason, or do you sense that there are some other things that are potentially holding them back, or indeed making them think that this really is something that they should go for?
Well, I've seen more interest in doing this in the past couple of years. I think that hotels have taken a look at the revenue gains that the airlines have had. I think they've certainly, by working with companies and listening to the success stories that Nor1 has had with its clients, success breeds success. One of the challenges, though, is we saw this earlier in terms of who has responsibility, and I think a big challenge here is for the folks to figure out how and to have the willingness to do work with people outside their organizational groups. Hospitality is siloed. You've got property level, you've got brand, you've got regional, you've got owners, and so on. So sometimes one of the biggest challenges to doing this are the organizational silos. Like any industry, we have to find ways to work around and through these challenges.
Okay, right. So let's get into some of the questions that are coming in rather quickly here. So first one, are upgrades more relevant to leisure travel and less so for business corporate travel?
I think that it's a dangerous, or intuitively that makes sense. Clearly, a large percentage of the offers that we're making are for leisure travelers, but we have worked over the past, year and a half to really understand business travelers. And again, I think it just gets back to having the right offer. having this broad offer set. Still, business travelers have ground transportation needs, have restaurant needs, have all these different needs, and then also just the way you're merchandising, the inventory, the way you merchandise towards a business traveler is not necessarily, and probably not the exact same way you merchandise to a leisure traveler. So, our experience is that yes, the leisure traveler is kind of easier and more obvious to upsell to, but there's a huge amount of opportunity that we think is untapped with business travelers.
And if I may, Kevin, one thing with the business traveler, there's also the challenge of their loyalty and their status. If they feel they're entitled to certain things, as well as reimbursement costs and so on, and number of nights in the stay. If it's a one-night stay for the business traveler and they're arriving late and checking out early, it may be very different than a leisure traveler or business traveler who's staying multiple nights and especially at a more full-service property. I will say, though, I think select service businesses, select service hotels do have the ability to merchandise and generate revenue from their upgrade offers, whether it's business or leisure.
Okay, this is a question specifically for you, Henry. Asks, you said 25 to 50% of ancillaries are sold after an initial flight booking is made. Is that because in the path, the technology path is not yet being adequately deployed, or do travelers just prefer to separate their transactions?
That's the interest, and it's a function of, I think, for travelers on the airlines, just get me the low fare that I'm seeking or get me the flights that I'm seeking, and then they want to buy the other things, similar to the observation that Jason had. If you're booking your flight weeks or months in advance, again, especially for leisure travelers, you just want the flights, and then as you get closer to departure, you start thinking more about the journey. That's where that story arc comes in.
Okay. Next question then. So this is from Heiko, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, asks, is there any data experience in how far upselling or utilizing Nor1 so far has led to any channel shift, i.e. from OTA to brand.com? Jason, it's probably one for you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we've just started to explore that, or at least as far as measure that. And so, honestly, I can't give you statistics yet. But again, we're analyzing that right now. And more than that is just to find, we believe there's ways that by focusing on, for instance, e-standby and its benefits, because again, we've been around long enough and had enough, so to say, penetration into the market that a lot of travelers are aware of it, and using that as a differentiator, for the hotelers and these different channels. But we're still, like I said, collecting information to understand it.
And Henry, slightly changing the question, how do you sense this might play out over time? To Heiku's question here, will we going to get any kind of channel shift from OTAs to brand.com as a result of any of this?
Well, I think that if the OTA booking channels or planning channels, again, whether it's web or mobile, etc., are tangibly better, tangibly richer than third parties, it will help brand.com, if you will, gather more use. And again, this is where making sure your technology is working for you. You may have someone who prefers to book through a third party, or in the case of a business traveler, is required to book through a third party. But if you have their customer data and you can message to them post-booking, you can get them to use your channel for things such as upgrades or other stay enhancements.
Okay, so quite a practical question here from Amy. Amy asks, with regards to mobile, do you favor hotel-specific mobile apps or responsive design in emails and websites, or upselling even by something as, dare I say, old-fashioned as text?
Yeah, I mean, we've built our architecture to utilize whatever, sort of, let's say, whatever, mode or whatever medium, whether it's text or whether it's again, sophisticated email design or, fueling the apps, of our clients. So, at this time, I, statistically can tell you what we see the predominance of, but again, I think there's going to be huge opportunities even outside what we've just discussed, with social media and, and different means to communicate with the guests. So, from an engineering standpoint, we're trying to be able to address, any and all mechanisms to communicate with the guest.
Gene, you had a point you wanted to raise with our two panelists here.
Yeah, I have a question directly for Henry. Henry, you and I have spent a lot of time nosing around in travel business, and there's been an enormous amount of change, putting tools like what Nor1 has and other digital commerce tools in the hands of airlines, hotels, tour operators, and a whole other institutional experienced folks in travel who, frankly used to wet their finger and manage their businesses, not by the seat of their pants, but through deep experience. Can you talk a little bit about some of the HR and business design challenges around travel as we morph into how to apply big data and analytics to upselling opportunities in the way travel is going to be sold in a long-tail economy?
Sure, Gene, thanks. Well, again, I think that in the hotel business, we spend a lot of time thinking about the physical design of the product, the exterior, the architecture, the room design, restaurants. We spend a lot of time hiring and training people, so we think about the customer service interactions. But when it comes to the data, again, this is where we are still learning, and the challenge here is, do you have a comprehensive, cohesive data warehouse or other resource to use to understand your guests' behaviors and the different types, if you will, of personas that you have? Because depending on the type of property you are and your location, you're going to have different types of guests coming to you. The business traveler today is the leisure traveler tomorrow. You really, really need to think through how to use this data, again, to a point Jason made, for real-time decisioning. And you need to train your people as well as use the technology, whether it's at the front desk or whether it's mobile or email or text or anything else, so that the offers are being not only extended but communicated in the right way. Execution is critical. Execution is 99% of the challenge here.
Thanks, Henry.
Okay, sorry. Right, so here is one from where I had noted it down and it's gone here. So, Luca asks, given the fact that individuals travel relatively infrequently, maybe once or twice a year, maybe a little bit more for business travelers, how do you actually build a rich enough customer profile with data when there isn't actually an awful lot of traveling data kicking about, arguably? Jason, over to you on that one, maybe.
No, that's a great question, and it basically comes down to this, and that's why when I keep referencing the sort of the millions of transactions that we've seen is hugely important. Probably for us, about 20% of our business is repeat guests, guests that we've seen, and the way that we address that challenge, and our coming to this was at the point where we went out and hired, like I said, PhD level statisticians and mathematicians to understand this, but it's employing an approach of look-alike profiles. And so we don't have enough history on each guest to make precise offers, but what we do have is millions of transactions, and what we're doing is there's about 250 data fields that we're collecting for every for every reservation. There's about 15 of those data fields that actually are relevant or that we weight very heavily. And so a persona for us is basically a mathematical representation of this person at this property at this point in time. And so instead of looking historically at this guest, what we're looking at is what's their persona, what's their mathematical representation, and then we match that against maybe the last 5,000 travelers that have had the same persona. And so that's how we address, that's how we use big data, but that's how we address this. So it's like they call it a cold start problem, which is we don't have enough data on that individual.
Right. Okay. Just a few more minutes then to get through some of these questions here. So Fernando asks, and let's have you take this one as well, Jason. So Fernando asks, as airlines, hotels, car rental services, tour providers, etc., they start prioritizing upselling, mainly in destination, is there a risk possibly of upselling becoming spam selling, in inverted commas?
Yeah, again, I think that clearly we always want to be cautious and concerned about that. But again, it gets back down to just creating very relevant offers. If those offers are precise and laser focused, I don't believe that there's going to be a problem. I mean, what we've seen in the past is when we very first started the business, there was this huge sort of, I would say, almost visceral reaction when we talked about sending an email out to the guest, which was, no, we don't want to spam the guest. And what our belief is that the guests aren't getting too many offers. It's just that they're getting too many irrelevant offers. And that again, by using sort of sophisticated approaches that we've discussed, that you'll have very precise, relevant, offers, and there shouldn't be this spamming approach. But absolutely, there needs to be a balance. And then, some of the things that we're going into is multiple organizations taking this approach. How is that all going to bear out? Still some uncharted territory yet that we need to, we'll need to cover.
And indeed, a related question here from Dan at Mobile RQ. He says, how big a concern are you seeing, if at all, from your clients around privacy? When it comes to pushing out messages on a mobile phone, even if they are highly targeted, do you sense that there are any kind of privacy concerns coming up at all?
Yeah, I mean, privacy is always, certainly is always a concern, and something that we're very much focused on, not only just legally, from a regulatory standpoint, but also, again, just back to what we believe what's acceptable to guests. We don't employ any, let's say, discriminating practices. We have a very, let's say, healthy opt-out program, and we also recognize that different sort of geographic jurisdictions, the EU and the United States are very different. And so again, but back to being very relevant, we typically haven't seen a problem because our offers are made in the reservation life cycle, specific to a reservation, specific to a guest, and usually, like I said, they're very relevant. So, we haven't had a huge problem. We do watch it very closely.
Okay, question for you, Henry. So, and I've just lost it here for a second. So, Victor asks, what about gamification in the display of the upselling? Do you believe in it at all?
Well, gamification is endemic in travel, and I think one of the benefits of an upselling program is you can monetize this. So, part of the challenge with loyalty programs is they've become corporate entitlement programs on the part of many of the participants. I expect this, I demand it. And what I like about monetization is that certainly you can try to incorporate gamification elements that are positive, but you can also help manage the guest experience and generate revenue. Again, the example that Jason cited of Hilton, here's the complimentary upgrade that you're entitled to. Here are options that are premium. I just think you have to, again, focus on what Jason just said, which is doing the right number of offers as opposed to too many irrelevant offers.
Okay, and just one or two more questions now. Glenn asks, how much upselling should be done using points rather than cash? And indeed, what would be the impact on conversion between the two, if that's something that you've indeed measured or noticed at all, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any statistics to measure, the difference in conversion between the two because it's a very early, we're very early on with a number of our clients with being able to use points. I absolutely believe from a guest perspective, there's a huge opportunity. I think unlike in the airlines where a lot of us are very comfortable with using points and buying flights, many people, including myself, and I travel a lot, aren't completely sure about how to use my points, right? And then I just need more opportunities, and we believe guests need more opportunities to use points for things other than say vacation stays or free nights. But again, we're pretty early on in making those types of offers together.
And
okay,
if I may,
sorry, of course, Jason, go ahead.
It's Henry. If I may, I'd just like to do a shout out here. I noticed when I was booking a trip on Hilton that they extend an offer to Honors members about redeeming points for room upgrades. What's really helpful about this is, not only the earn and burn aspect, but our research shows that travelers are still watching the amount of money they spend. So for the budget-focused traveler, for the person who's trying to watch the cash outlay, the point redemption, especially if they have a number of points and they're an infrequent guest, you may help that guest have a better stay while managing their actual out-of-pocket cash expenses. So I think it's a very smart move. A lot obviously will depend on the, again, factors such as property, number of stays, people traveling, etc.
Okay, so our last question, and I'll come to you first of all, Henry. It's a question we ask an awful lot on these kind of things because a lot of the content in our webinars is about trends that are starting to happen and now and developing further. So, Henry, the question is then, do you sense that we could put this webinar on in 3 years' time and we would still be getting the same types of questions and the industry would still be in the same place? Or what do you sense would be the issues or the kind of the state of the nation within 3 years?
Well, I think we will see some of these questions, but I think we'll see different ones. I think in 3 years, we will be asking questions more about refinement of this and especially more about use of data to fine-tune things, as opposed to should I do paid upgrades, how do I do this? It will be more a matter of how do I do this better. What I think, though, we need to bear in mind is that we are, of course, a global industry. So as brands emerge and as technology spreads, we will be having to deal with a different base of consumers. So how do I do something that's optimized for, let's say, the Western European traveler versus someone who is coming from a developing market versus someone who is coming from a market that is maybe midway along the development curve. Lots of different things. I think that one thing we will be discussing in a few years is a new type of currency, not a cash currency, but an information-based currency. What's it worth to you as a company to get access to my data? Our research shows 4 in 10 travelers are willing to share personal information with travel companies if it's used responsibly. If there's a benefit, especially in travel, customers will use it, will share information with us. But I think we need to figure out how to use that information effectively, and again, Jason has spoken eloquently on this about how Nor1 is investing in the people as well as the technology to do that.
Okay, and the last word goes to you, Jason, on this. Looking forward 2 or 3 years, do you agree with Henry, or do you sense there might be some other challenges or indeed opportunities ahead?
Thanks, Kevin. I mean, I absolutely agree with Henry. From my perspective, it's less of a technology issue, right? I mean, we're a technology company. Trying to push the envelope on things like sort of mobile interactions and big data. I feel comfortable with sort of our and the industry's ability to, let's say, harness those things. I think the bigger question is whether or not this will be successful is the ability for an organization to break down their silos. As we talked earlier, and I think Henry also mentioned this, to have a very robust, effective upselling facility, it actually takes sort of the equal participation by a number of internal silos in an organization. Silos that just haven't always, let's say, directly cooperated, and just not for any particular reason. And then when you talk about things like big data and engineering like mobile, it's pervasive. Those two topics, sort of cut across, all of these different internal organizations. So whether or not this is successful and we really utilize the opportunity, really impact guest experience, will be, I think, less the technology. I mean, we're still working on that, but I think those are solvable problems. It's just organizationally, will they accept, these technologies, and how do they employ them, throughout the organization, throughout the enterprise.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you very much. Apologies to those that did put a question in and didn't get a chance to pose it to the panel. As I said earlier, we have made a note of all those questions, and we'll be sending those off to our guys here, and hopefully they or their representatives will get back to you with an answer. So it just goes for me to say, to remind you all that there'll be a replay of this on tnooz.com within the next 24 hours or 12 hours, hopefully, video and all the slides from the full deck. So watch out for that. Thank you very much, of course, to everybody for listening in, as always. Great questions. And finally, and obviously, thank you very much to Jason Bryant of Nor1 and Henry Hartwell of Hudson Crossing. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us today. And obviously, big thanks to Nor1 for partnering with us on this webinar. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I get the sense that many of you have, and loads of you stuck around to listen to the Q&A, which is always a really good sign. So thank you very much to everybody. Enjoy the end of your respective days. Thanks ever so much. Bye-bye.
The organizer has ended the session.